problem, but I'm just pointing it out.
He could kill it. So when Lavos made landfall in 65 million BC and allowed Magus to take the gate to 12,000 BC, he assumed the guise of the prophet, infiltrated the Ocean Palace as an adult, and tried to kill Lavos again. So every time he has tried, he has failed. Magus killing Cirrus and then turning Glenn into a frog wasn't ever his main plan. It was just an unfortunate event on his quest for revenge. And now, you have to make a rather substantial choice. You can fight Magus in 12,000 BC, complete Frog's story, avenge Cirrus, and cement Frog as the legendary hero while also stopping the human mystic war of 600 AD before it starts. Or, you can forgive Magus, understanding his intentions were flawed but ultimately about saving the world, and invite him to join us in the quest to stop Lavos.
You don't invite him. You don't invite, because you just say, no, I don't want to fight you, and then he offers to join you. It's just phrasing. It's for phrasing.
Just versus the frog, a scared child thrown through time, hell-bent on destroying the creature which took his family and his home, and a scared child who watched his only friend and mentor coldly cut down before being transformed and left as a joke. This is the best type of writing because both characters are flawed and both have understandable motivations. Both of them are heroes in their own story. There's no right choice here. If you do fight Magus and win, you'll get to see Frog revert back to human form in the ending. But I want to show you the whole game, so we will let Magus live. Frog says he understands that revenge won't bring Cirrus back. He places the needs of the many above his own personal desire for vengeance, and Magus realizes that he cannot defeat Lavos on his own. Now, normally in games, when you unlock an enemy as a playable character, you get a powered-down version of them. But not here. In a really nice touch, Magus is just as powerful as when you fought him. He has access to all the same spells. His health is just scaled down to work with yours.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he is not just as powerful. He does not have 5,000 hit points.
But there's one final problem. The Ocean Palace isn't destroyed. The power of Lavos after the massive explosion in Zeal had one final trick, raising the magical Ocean Palace out of the sea and materializing it in the air. It hangs looming over the planet as the Black Omen. The Black Omen is the final dungeon, the ultimate route to Lavos, and it now appears in every
Okay, so yeah, I saw the Black Omen, didn't realize it was the final dungeon, and was like, oh, I need to go there next, and I went there, and everyone yelled at me.
Time period from 12,000 BC onwards. With the residual power granting Queen Zeal effective immortality, she waits for 1999, the death.
I find it pretty funny that he's using the exact same team that I did. Clearly that was the best party.
Day of Lavos. In a nice narrative touch from this moment forward, if you travel forward in time using the epoch, no one thinks the floating sky fortress of the Black Omen is weird because it's always just been there. Some people even worship it, just assuming it's a natural island. Now, before we take on the Black Omen, return to the end of time and talk to the old man, who we now know to be Gaspar, the guru of time from Zeal. Gaspar even recognizes Magus as the young child Janus, and they share a brief chat. Gaspar is saddened by the loss of Chrono, but explains that there may be a way for us to bring him back into the timeline by changing a key event.
So I had to talk to the old man to find out how to get Chrono back.
In the past. The guru Melchior fixed the
There was like 3 or 4 times during the story that I went and talked to the old man, and he had like no information for me, so it never occurred to me to go back and talk to him again after that.
The guru Balthazar created the epoch, and now the guru Gaspar gives us the Chrono Trigger. A magical egg of pure potential. It may do something, it may do nothing. It may be the key to saving Chrono, we don't know. The only way to truly know is to speak to Balthazar, or at least his consciousness, and see what part of history we can change. So with the Chrono Trigger in our possession, we return to the future, and the creature containing Balthazar's consciousness tells us to hatch the time egg and activate the Chrono Trigger, we will need to climb to the peak of Death Mountain. But if we're trying to save someone, we will also need a perfect clone of that person to make sure the timeline is not changed too much. And he mentions a magician called Bekla, who makes clones. Now, Bekla is actually hosting a sideshow back at the Millennial Fair in 1000 AD. So we return there, play games until we have enough silver points to attempt Bekla's challenge, and then play a match the movement minigame, which is actually quite fast and quite hard. And when you win, Bekla agrees to make a clone. The clone appears at Chrono's house, so we take the clone, return to the future, and fight up Death Peak, which brings new mechanics even this far into the game. The wind pushes you down.
So we're making a clone of him just to murder the clone?
You have to hide behind trees when climbing up, timing your dashes up. And then in a cave, we fight a small Lavos spawn, thankfully nowhere near the power of its mother. Slowly edging along this thin path, the wind effect is also here, so it's a case of run against the wind, dash sideways, repeat, and if you fall, you have to start all over again. Eventually, you fight and defeat a Lavos spawn outside, and then need to push the shell of the defeated enemy into a position to act as a ladder. And this is the only instance in the game of pushing an object to open up a new path, which is a shame. This is also the only time that we see a unique mechanical interaction between having the fights happen on the map you're playing and then using the remnants of the fight to unlock new areas. And I think it's a real shame that Chrono Trigger didn't explore this blending of mechanics more. If you're going to have the fights happen on the map, then have the outcome of the fight affect the map itself. Finally, we reach the peak. The Chrono Trigger activates and then shatters. Did we do it? Have we failed? Well, suddenly we're thrown back in time to the exact moment before Lavos unleashed the energy blast against Chrono. Mages cannot believe we're actually in a time stop. Apparently it's the most powerful magical thing you can possibly do. But we take full advantage of this and replace Chrono with the clone. The Chrono Trigger ends, the time flow returns, and the actual Chrono is alive again.
Wait, hold on
with
a sec.
the clone. The Chrono Trigger
Hurry, we take
ends,
Chrono.
the time flow returns.
Save the hellos for later.
Actual Chrono
Chrono, good of you to return.
is alive again. With a full team returned, you now have several choices. Every single character has a side story remaining, and they're all fleshed out and they all tie up their loose ends. Or you have 3 separate ways to take on Lavos. For now, we're going to complete everyone's side story to unlock all the ultimate weapons and also some armor which will be essential to surviving the onslaught of the chaos effects that Lavos has. You've also unlocked some new potential endings already. If you challenge Lavos after regaining the Epoch, but before reviving Chrono, you'll see the reunion ending. But this ending has 6 different variations based on how many other characters' subquests you have finished. Ultimately, the focus is on Marl growing up without Chrono and the rest of the party discussing if it's possible to bring him back, mentioning Death Peak, which is a lovely hint that after finishing the game, you could come back and try this again. With Chrono alive again, if you talk to Gaspar at the end of time, he'll mention all the quest lines you have yet to solve and hint at the time period they are in. And talking to party members in the end of time.
Oh man, that's so unfortunate. Because yeah, again, the old man, the first 3 to 4 times I talked to him in the early game, he had nothing useful for me at all. And yeah, because when you meet him, he's like, oh, talk to me when you need help. And then the next few times I talked to him when I needed help, and he had nothing. So I was like, okay, this guy never says anything. But apparently he's useful just way later on. And yeah, it's just like I had already lost faith in him. And it was kind of like the bucket up here. The bucket, I tried this twice, and it didn't work. And then I just assumed it did nothing, and I never tried it again. And apparently those are the only 2 times in the game that the bucket did nothing.
Time shows you a map location of where you should start looking. So it's not totally cryptic, but it does take a little bit of detective skill to fully figure out. Let's start with Ayla, who has the shortest side quest. Return to 65 million BC, and Ayla's tribe claim to have some super powerful red armor, but they'll only trade it for multiple currencies all found in the hunting grounds to the north. You need to collect 10 fangs, 10 horns, 10 petals, and 10 feathers, and it takes a while to do this, but it's worth it. So we grind a little bit here until we get 3 sets of ruby armor. Next up is Luca. Remember the Kingdom of Zeal kept mentioning a sunstone?
Wait. How is that a quest for Ayla? That's just grinding and trading.
An object with immense power, which if left to die becomes a moonstone. Well, Luca thinks that if she could gain access to a sunstone, she could probably turn it into a weapon. So we travel to 2300 AD and use the Epoch to fly to the previously inaccessible Sun Palace. And there you will find the mini-boss, Son of the Sun.
Yeah, I never found
one of the hardest fights in the game. This Fire Guardian hits your entire team with high damage fire attacks and then a single target ultimate attack, often one-hitting even the toughest of characters. But that's not all. It's a gimmick fight as well. Attacking the
500 damage AoE.
core directly triggers a super powerful retaliation, so instead, you need to attack one of the 5 smaller flames orbiting the core. And if you are lucky enough to pick the correct one, you'll do some damage. However, once you pick the correct one, you only have a few turns to hit it before the sun uses Shuffle and mixes up the flames again. This fight is an endurance test of how long you can survive against incredible fire damage, but we have a sneaky advantage. Remember those ruby armors we got from Ayla's subquest? They reduce fire damage by 80%, and it was worth grinding for them because this fight, without that armor, is almost impossible. When the Son of the Sun boss dies, it loses its power and reverts back to its original moonstone form. But we already know to recharge a moonstone, just leave it in direct sunlight for millions of years. That's okay, we can do that. We take the Epoch back to 65 million BC and drop the moonstone off at the Sun Keep. We then hop forward in time to 2300 and go and pick it up again, and it's not there. Somebody has taken it. If you have Frog or Magus in your party at this point, they'll suggest you start looking around 1000 AD. And if you fly back to
If you have Magus in your party. Why would you? Oh my god. Yeah, like if you don't have him in your party, you'd have no way of knowing where to go from here.
1000 AD. First off, I really like how traveling in the Epoch maintains the overworld map position, but you'll also notice the mayor's house is a lot more sparkly than it was before. We ask the mayor if he's taken the sunstone, and he denies it. However, his family explain he is a bitter, greedy man, because that's just how he was raised. That's how his family have always been. So maybe we can fix that. Let's hop over to the local shop first and buy...
Dude, really? Are we gonna go back in time and fix his family?
Buy some beef jerky for 9,900 coins. This is expensive, but very important. With the jerky in hand, go back to 600 AD. Go to the same house as the mayor, and you'll find a struggling mother trying to feed a lot of kids. She spots that you've got the beef jerky on you and offers to buy it off you for 10,000 coins. She is desperate. Now, we could make a profit, but instead of selling it, give it her for free. Your generosity astounds her, and she swears all of her children will be raised to know of this gift and be raised right. After doing this, hop back to 1000 AD, and the mayor is now a kind...
What? There's no way I would have figured this out. I don't even believe Josh figured this out. I think Josh looked this up online, and now he's acting like he figured it out. So hold on. So to complete Ayla's quest, you have to go back in time, grind feathers and fangs, trade with a caveman, get ruby armor that reduces fire damage taken, go to a different point in time, fight the Son of Sun, who you gotta hit the random shuffling flames, then you kill him, and then you get the moonstone, and this is the only part I figured out. You go back in time, you put it in sunlight, then you jump 60 billion years into the future, you go back to get it, but it's been taken, and this man stole it, and instead of just taking it back from him, or talking to him, it's easier to go back in time again with bacon, and teach his family the value of bacon, so that you can come back here. And now he's a nice man because he got bacon as a kid, which I could totally understand that part at least.
kind and loving person adored by his family because of how he was raised. And when you ask about the Sunstone, he happily hands it over. Once you've got the stone, head back over to the Sunkeep and stick it down for another 1,300 years. Jump forward into the future to grab the fully charged up stone, and once you've got that,
Of course, exactly 1,300.
head back to 1000 AD and go to Luca's house and watch Luca and her dad work together to create Luca's ultimate weapon and accessory, the Wonder Shot and the Sun Specs. The Wonder Shot does random damage, and the Sun Specs vastly increase the chance of that damage being exceptionally high. Now let's move on to Frog. While Magus still lives, Frog can still find some closure. With the Epoch available to travel across the land, we can access the northern continent in all time periods. And if you travel to the northern ruins in 1000 AD, you'll find a mad ghost guarding a keep. The ghost is immune to all damage.
Mock, you should reload before the big ship and then just do all this. No, I'm done. I'm done. Let's just enjoy what could have been. I'm good. I'm good.
The locals say the ghost has been around for about 400 years, angry that the place...
Wait, hold on. I need you to understand. Hang on a second. All right. Okay. I'm good. All right. Back to the show.
Fell into disrepair. Many saying it's a ghost of some legendary hero who was killed during the war with Magus. So we travel back to 600 AD and ask around. The northern ruins are damaged but fixable, so we hire a local builder to fix them. Problem is, he's misplaced his tools, and there are no tools spare in 600 AD. Not a problem. Hop back to 1000 AD, ask that local builder if you can borrow his tools, and he says, yeah, that's fine. So you take them, go back to 600, and the fixing begins. Unfortunately, the place is
We couldn't even just go get some tools. We had to time travel to get tools.
full of skeletons, so the builders refuse to work until you have cleared the place out and then offered them even more money. And eventually, the northern castle is a bit more presentable, and in the deepest parts of the castle, we find the grave of the legendary knight, Cirrus. The ghost of Cirrus appears to us, and Frog and Cirrus have an emotional reunion, with Cirrus telling Frog how immensely proud of him he is, and how Frog has become the hero he always knew he could be. Cirrus sees that Frog is strong and capable. He asks him to look after Queen Leene, and knowing the world is in good hands, he can finally rest. Seeing this show of true, unselfish heroism, the Masamune Blade finally accepts Frog as the legendary hero in this timeline, and it becomes the most powerful version of itself. And I'm not gonna lie, I got very emotional at this point because it's a stunningly satisfying ending to the journey of self-doubt and guilt that Frog has felt his whole life. After you fix up the northern ruins, you'll also have access to more of those black magic chests, so do the same trick. Open them in 600 AD, decline the item, hop forward to 1000 AD for the powered-up version, which will give you the Valkyr, Marl's ultimate weapon. And it's kind of strange that Marl's weapon comes from Frog's mini-quest, and seeing as how every other character's subquest is the route to getting their best weapon and resolving their own personal story, getting Marl's ultimate weapon from an area and a storyline not in any way connected to her is unfortunately very weak scripting. But before we close the book on Frog's story, one final super hidden secret. Characters learn single and dual techs by leveling, but triple techs are a bit more elusive. Some of them you do learn, but the best triple techs have to be unlocked by equipping certain accessories. Frog's final triple tech needs you to equip a gold rock. And the only way to find a gold rock is to have Frog lead the party, return to the mountains, and then stand around while a ninja bird throws rocks at you. And this is the only enemy who throws rocks at you, and they are on the map with the rainbow effect. Eventually, Frog will catch one of the rocks, turns out it's the gold rock, which unlocks his final technique. With Frog sorted, we can move on to Magus. Magus now understands that Ozzy effectively used him during the Mystic Human War of 600 AD, and because Magus never led that war is now being led by Ozzy and his commanders, Flea and Slash. They control a stronghold in 600 AD, so we head back there and storm in. The Flea and Slash fights are powered-up versions of their earlier selves, and the journey to Ozzy is again trying to get past...
Y'all know I'm a PG streamer. This is bullshit. What? Dude, this whole bit with a golden rock. Are you kidding me?
Back there and storm in. The Flea and Slash fights are powered-up versions of their earlier selves, and the journey to Ozzy is again trying to get past his cowardly traps. But I really like this moment. Ozzy summons some enemies, but then accidentally drops them into his own pits almost instantly, and the music actually dies to reflect the failure. I like this because it shows they've thought about the character's personality, the actions they'd take, the mistakes they'd make, and then used an audio cue to really reinforce that failure. Unfortunately, despite being a bit of an idiot, the final triple fight against all three is remarkably tough. Attacking them at all results in a triple tech retaliation from each one. So using a magic 2 spell and hitting all three means you have to eat 3 instant retaliations, which is often enough to kill any party. Much like the earlier Ozzy fight, when you finally win, he hides inside a magic shell, and when you attack the switches on the wall, it's ultimately not even you who defeats him. A random cat wanders in, pushes the button for the pit, and then wanders out. How did a cat get here? Was that Chrono's cat? Was it the same cat that we saw in the futuristic sewers? How is Chrono's cat in 600 AD? In fact, how is it everywhere? With Ozzy sorted, Magus can find his ultimate equipment, the Gloom set, in a hidden room just south of the boss room. The Gloom scythe does more damage the more party members are dead, really reinforcing Magus's solo-focused battle style. Interesting side note, if you finish Magus's side quest and do defeat Ozzy in this time period, when you travel forward to 1000 AD, the human-monster war finished quite quickly, and all the monsters now are actually super chill and get on pretty well with all the humans. With Magus sorted, we can now move on to helping Fiona, who isn't a playable character but does tie into Robo and Luca's storylines. Remember the woman in 12,000 BC Zeal with the sapling? Queen Zeal told her to destroy it and we told her to plant it. Well, in 600 AD, her descendant Fiona still has that sapling. And Fiona wants to plant it to revive the desert into a forest, but the desert is full of monsters, so we go and sort that out. This means falling into the whirling sand and clearing out the skeletons below. And the idea of an optional super boss hiding in the desert also draws parallels to Ruby Weapon in Final Fantasy VII. The desert boss hides underground and only pops up every few seconds, and you must run up to it to start the fight. However, you're also on this conveyor belt of moving sand dunes, so movement is quite hindered. You don't get any sort of bonus for starting the fight in any specific corner.
You know what I'm reminded of from this room? Is the Team Rocket headquarters in Pokemon Red and Blue. Dude, does anyone know what I'm talking about? There's just like conveyor belts everywhere, and you're just getting pushed all over the place, trying to pick your fights without getting shoved into the wrong one.
Of the room. And one thing to note about all these optional bosses is they are incredibly hard. If you take your turns too slow or use the wrong spell at the wrong time and make more than 1 or 2 mistakes during these fights, and they're about 20 minutes each, you will be killed. You're dealing with much higher
if you take your turn too slow, you'll be killed. Yeah.
Damage numbers, and setting up your armor to absorb the correct element is essential to surviving. This desert boss has a super high defense unless you use water or ice magic, which hardens the sand of the skeletal body and reduces their defense. With the desert cleared of enemies, we tell Fiona it's safe to plant the seed. Unfortunately, regrowing a forest takes hundreds of years, and she doesn't have the family or the help to maintain a vigil for several centuries. Thankfully, Robo is willing to stay behind and tend the forest from now until it's finished. If you agree to this, you'll now see Robo in the overworld tilling the ground. He finally found his purpose, not in machines or destruction, but in nature and regrowth. And if you jump forward to 1000 AD, the desert is now a lush forest, and just on the edge of that forest, there is a church built to honor Fiona and Robo, the saviors of nature. Reactivating Robo within the
You just drop off a party member for 1,000 years.
church takes some time because he's been working non-stop for 400 years, but he does remember us like it was yesterday and happily rejoins us. This leads to a campfire scene where everyone is enjoying the forest at night, and Robo theorizes the time gates may not even be a creation of Lavos, but instead another entity.
At least he should have a whole bunch of XP level ups from that lot amount of time.
Who simply wishes us to witness the events of time. This then leads to one of the darker moments of Chrono Trigger, one of the few events you cannot return to in time and try again. While everyone is asleep, Luca wakes up. She opens a red time portal and travels back to 990 AD, 10 years ago, to the night she wishes she could change. We've seen Luca's dad, Tobin, before, but never Luca's mum, Lara, and this is why. When Luca was a child, her father Tobin was obsessed with inventions and science, so much so that he ignored Luca. This made Luca resent science, and she saw it as stealing her father away from her. Then one day she sees her mum clean one of the dad's inventions, get her skirt caught in a moving part, and dragged into the machine. Lara is screaming for Luca to do something, to turn off the machine, to help her, but Luca is just a child and doesn't know what to do. She can only watch helplessly as the machine rips through her mum's legs, leaving her disabled. Luca, despite
What the fuck? What? Why does he have a moving sidewalk of death in the kitchen?
Child blames herself for not being able to save her mum from this machine, and through her diary notes you discover that Luca only became an inventor so she would know enough about machines to save someone if this ever happens again. If only I knew more, she writes. So this red gate, taken alone while the rest of the party sleeps, is Luca's chance to set things right as an adult. By reading Tobin's diary, you discover the shut-off password.
Okay, I'm immediately thinking that if she saves mom, Luca doesn't become an inventor, and then that screws everything up. It's kind of like if someone, it's kind of like the, what is it, the canon in the Spider-Verse. Like Uncle Ben has to die or Peter doesn't become Spider-Man.
Password to the machine is his wife's name, Lara, or Lara on the controller. However, an additional challenge compared to the previous passwords, you only have about 4 seconds to put this code in. It is a super quick moment, and if you're able to do it, the machine stops and you save your mum. Doing this causes Tobin to spend more time with Luca and pass the passion for inventing onto her. So Luca now grows up loving machines instead of feeling indebted to learn it. When you return to the campfire,
Oh, okay. Well, alright, that's convenient.
whether you're able to save Luca's mum or not, Robo greets you and gives you a gift, the Green Dream. It's a piece of amber from the forest forged inside him under immense pressure for 400 years. This is an equipable accessory which revives you once during battle. And now we know Luca's backstory. We begin to see that every character in Chrono Trigger is following a life created by a childhood issue, which slowly
Xander, thank you for the prime, buddy. I appreciate that. Welcome.
solidifies into a personality, and then they get the chance to face that issue head on and find closure, becoming who they actually want to be. With the forest regrown, we have more to explore with Robo, mainly why the robots in the far future began to attack him, or why the computer system is now so hostile to humans. So with the Epoch flying, we can return to the original robot factory, to Geno Dome, and search out some answers. To complete Robo's side quest, you must have Robo positioned in the top slot of the party and act as the leader. When you enter the factory, another robot greets Robo and you learn his real name, Prometheus. This is apt, as Robo is effectively named after the god who defied Olympus and brought fire to the humans, in this case in the form of technology. The robot factory itself is a large multi-floor puzzle with various switches and doors and another new mechanic. Walking into this indent will charge Robo with electrical energy, and this only lasts a short time and needs to be taken to the other doors to open them. This means sprinting quickly through the level to access new parts, and eventually we discover the secret and truth of the
I like how he says sprinting as if there's a sprint button.
factory. The few remaining humans in this time period are being processed into fuel to continue powering the facility. To shut this down, we need to reach the mainframe, or as Robo calls it, Mother. The timings needed to take the electrical discharge from one station to the next are super tight, and a large part of this factory is a puzzle in reversing the direction of this conveyor belt to make the run possible. Eventually, when you push through, you bump into Robo's old girlfriend. Robo's girlfriend is called...
It's just Robo with a bow.
Atropos, which continues the mythical nature of Robo's side quest. With Robo himself being Prometheus and his girlfriend Atropos, the name Atropos is one of the 3 sisters of fate in Greek mythology, specifically the sister of fate who would cut the thread of life and decide how and when someone dies. And she congratulates him, stating his purpose was always to infiltrate human society, learn from it, and destroy it from within. And while Robo doesn't deny that this was his original purpose, he insists he is no longer under the control of Mother and cannot believe this is what has become of both his time and his kin. This leads to one of the first one-on-one showdown fights where Robo must fight his old girlfriend before she kills his human friends. You both have the same moveset, but Robo is slightly stronger, so keep punching until she breaks, and then in a rather...
You just beat her. You just punch your girlfriend until you win.
The emotional moment, destroying Robo's girlfriend gives her a moment of lucidity, of memories before Mother rewrote their programming, and she misses Robo dearly, giving him her bow, which is a permanent upgrade to Robo. In the center of the facility, you can confront Mother, who explains that after Lavos destroyed the world, humans had no chance. Lavos absorbs all organic...
Yo, she looks cool.
energy as fuel, and the greater variety within the organic energy available, the stronger Lavos becomes. So the only logical solution was for machines to be made, humans to be processed, and Lavos to be left to slowly die with nothing to eat. The irony here is Mother may be cruel, but she's not wrong. Starving Lavos is a legitimate solution, but doing this requires the extermination of the human race, and Robo cannot abide that. So you fight. Mother is flanked by 3 support screens, and these will heal her for around 1,000 health per turn, so the temptation is definitely kill them quickly, but be careful to only take out 2. If you leave 1 alive, you can just focus on out-damaging the healing. But if you break all 3 screens, Mother will go haywire and hit faster and harder every turn, which is
oh my god, this is the kind of BS that just you have to die and reload until you learn that.
much harder to beat. When you take Mother down, all the factory shuts down and the robots everywhere will stop, and the humans now have a chance to begin rebuilding the world again. This also gets you Robo's ultimate weapon, the Terror Arm. Onto Marl's subquest, reconciling with her father, or more correctly, helping the adults in the castle see that she is a capable adult in her own right. If you return to Guardia Castle in the present, 1000 AD, remember, some people still want you for kidnapping, the Chancellor tells Marl that her mum's death was definitely her father's fault. He was neglectful and harsh, spending too much time working to maintain the treasury of Guardia to really pay attention to either of them. Marl screams at her dad screams back, and the two hate each other even more. There's actually nothing you can do to fix their relationship here, so we return to 600 AD to set some new events in motion. The Guardia...
Of course we're gonna go to the past. Men will literally travel back in time and change the past rather than go to therapy.
Royal family in 600 AD seems obsessed with finding the mythical rainbow shell, a huge shell made of magical and tough material. Owning this would support the royal coffers.
I did see the quest mentions of the rainbow shell. I never found it though.
And reduce the workload on the royal family. They wouldn't need to maintain the nation's wealth if they had such a national treasure. Now, we've actually heard of the rainbow shell before. The wandering adventurer Toma has been looking for it and mentioned it several times. And if you pop over to the inn on the northern islands next to the ruins that Frog's subquest takes place in, you can meet Toma again. He's having a drink before starting the search for the shell. He even gives you a can of soda and says if he doesn't find the shell, make sure to pour the soda over his grave in respect for him trying. And if you then jump forward 400 years, you can find Toma's grave on the western cape of the same landmass. And if you do pour the exact drink over it, Toma's ghost will explain he never found the shell, but he did find where he thinks it is hidden, within the Giant's Claw cavern to the west.
It's so funny, like, not pour one out for me, not pour out a beer, but pour out a soda. That'll be me. Pour a Coca-Cola over my gravestone.
Unfortunately, this cavern doesn't exist in 1000 AD. That's not a problem. If we return to 600 AD, the cavern is now open and you can begin exploring. You might notice, however, the place looks familiar, because Giant's Claw Cavern is actually the Tyranno lair from 65 million BC, except millions of years have eroded the cave walls. So while you have to avoid pitfalls the last time you went through this to get to the end, you now need to activate the pitfalls on purpose just to descend deeper into the lair. And I love the fact that while they have reused a location, they've reused it in a way where progression requires the opposite focus to before. We fight through an absolute ton of bats and dinosaurs and find the Frenzy Band, an accessory which when equipped has an 80% chance to trigger a counterattack when you get hit. Stick this on Ayla and you're good to go. Finally, in the depth of the lair, we find the Rust Tyranno. The ancient black Tyranno we defeated millions of years ago is still alive and is much tougher. Taking it down this time is however a bit easier as we have access to brutally powerful triple techs. With the Rust Tyranno down, we finally find the rainbow shell, but it's far too heavy to move, even with all 3 of us, so we report this discovery to the king, and he agrees to send a regiment of soldiers to bring the shell to the castle and keep it safe as a national treasure. With this done, we return to 1000 AD to see how the king has changed. Unfortunately, he hasn't. He still seems work-focused and still sees Marl as a child. And unfortunately, he's also now on trial. The king is being accused by his own chancellor of selling the rainbow shell, a national treasure, to fill his own pockets. The only issue is the king doesn't know what the rainbow shell is, so clearly knowledge of this discovery was lost over 400 years ago, or it was kept from him. Knowing that we can prove the king's innocence by finding the rainbow shell in the castle basement, we rush down and are attacked by Nagas, the same enemies from the cathedral at the start. Eventually, we find the shell and a letter from Queen Lean of 600 AD to Marl of 1000 AD. Lean explains that she knows Marl and her father may not get on because their family line never has, but the bond they have is stronger than she knows. Marl, realizing that her dad needs her help, finds the strength to make herself heard. She snaps off a small part of the rainbow shell as proof that we have it and returns to the courtroom. However, the guards refuse to let her in, so she sneaks around the back and, in a dramatic, fantastic entrance, leaps up and smashes through.
She leaps through a glass window just like that.
The stained glass window. Before anyone can
and then falls like 20 feet.
object, Marl presents proof that the shell is in the castle and her father is being framed, and with this revelation, the Chancellor reveals his true form. He is Yakra the 13th, a descendant of the original Yakra who kidnapped kidnapped Queen Lean all those years ago. The original Yakra who also posed as a chancellor, the ones that we fought in the church. 400
I love all the jurors and stuff. Just like, oh, sweet, we get to watch a battle.
years later, his descendant is here to avenge his ancestor. I honestly really like this callback, because it shows that while no one was listening to Marl and everyone was listening to the Chancellor every time, the Chancellor was the one lying to them. It's showing that just because somebody is in a
Hi, Jabbers.
position of power does not mean that they have your best interest at heart. This battle is much harder than before, but when you finally win, Marl and the king make up. The king understands that Marl isn't a child anymore and needs to choose her own path, and Marl understands that her father didn't neglect the family as she was taught. They were all being fed lies from the Chancellor meant to disrupt the family. And as this happens, Melchior, the Guru of Life and Smith of the Masamune, appears again, saying he heard about the rainbow shell and believes he could fashion it into a powerful weapon. Little note here, you can return to the courtroom, pick up the key that Yakra the 13th dropped, and then free the current Chancellor from a chest, meaning we've now freed 2 Chancellors from 2 chests in 2 time periods. Melchior is in the basement and can indeed fashion the shell into a weapon, or he can make 3 helmets. And the prism helms that he makes prevent the chaos status and will be essential for surviving Lavos, so I go for those. But he also has one final gift. If you completed Lucas' side quest and found the Sunstone, Melchior can now combine the Sunstone and the Rainbow Shell into Rainbow, Chrono's ultimate weapon. The only thing remaining if you really want to be a completionist is to access the magical sealed blue pyramid in 1000 AD and use the power of the pendant to unlock it. You can choose either a helmet or a sword for Chrono, but neither are better than what you now have. And with that, every single side quest is done. The only thing left to do is kill Lavos, but you now have 3 possible ways to do that. The main ending and the route to unlocking New Game Plus requires us to complete the Black Omen, take on Queen Zeal, and then kill Lavos. But you could also just take the bucket teleport from the end of time to the day of Lavos and skip the Black Omen entirely, or you can use the Epoch to fly to 1999, the day of Lavos, and then crash the Epoch into Lavos, which instantly kills his first 9 forms and lets you go and fight his 2 ultimate forms first.
What? 9 forms?
And yes, you did hear correctly, Lavos has 11 forms, but we're being thorough, so we jump
What in the Harvest Temple is that?
into the Epoch, return to 12,000 BC, and enter the Black Omen. Remember, this is the Risen Ocean Palace. You can actually enter the Omen at any time period after 12,000 BC, but if you try the far future, the Queen informs you that you're too late and have already lost. By now, you've unlocked almost all the endings, which all have minor variations on who appears in the final credit sequence and whether the Epoch ship is destroyed or not. So let's take on the final dungeon, the Black Omen. This is an endurance test, a 2.5-hour gauntlet of 11 different bosses.
All right, this is where I was, you guys. Now, granted, a chunk of this video was side content I didn't find, but this is where I was. I was pretty far.
Leading to a fight against 11 forms of Lavos. The
You rage quit on a 3-phase fight. No, Shugo. I rage quit on a fight that when I made a mistake and then I learned from it, I had to replay 25 minutes. That was extremely frustrating. And I did it 3 times, spending over an hour on that fight. And then I realized I was going to have to do a 4th attempt, and I didn't have it in me to spend that much time again.
A mutant greets us and tries to cast chaos, but the prison helms from the Rainbow Shell Marl subquest protect us. The lift fight has us take on 2 advanced forms of Gatto, the training bot from earlier, and I love how these enemies, which look like a blob and an alien, are actually called Blob and Alien. The Black Omen is a beautiful, brutal place. The Giga Mutant is only vulnerable to magic, and its big brother, the Terror Mutant, has its top half drain HP from its bottom half, so only ever attack the top. Powered up Lavos spawn then gets teleported into the room to try and stop us, and then finally we reach the central core, cloning vats of us surrounding the room. It seems that Queen Zeal also understands that she can manipulate the events of the past through the use of clones, so she is preparing to erase us.
Wait, clones? She said that was our future selves. I thought that was a time travel thing.
From history. Queen Zeal has survived the explosion because of the residual power of Lavos, and the fight against the Queen opens with her draining everyone's HP to 1, so I hope you've brought group heals. I've gone with Chrono, Frog, and Ayla for Chrono's Luminaire AoE tech attack, and Frog and Ayla's joint Slurp Kiss team heal, and then Ayla's brutal physical damage and the combined triple tech of 3D attack, which hits for massive physical damage. When you weaken the Queen enough, she decides to just overwhelm us with magical energy and throws us into the aura of the damaged Mammon machine itself. Fighting the broken Mammon machine is a puzzle, because damaging it at all increases its offense and defense, but hitting it with Frog...
This was not really a puzzle. This was basically just wail on it till its armor was too tough, and then just wait. Then he would hit you, and then you heal, and then you wail on it again. Repeat.
Masamune, because the Masamune is the original blade which damaged it, drains all of the buffs. The Mammon machine stores energy, then releases it as waves of damage, but when you finally break it, Queen Zeal will teleport you onto the roof of the Black Omen itself, and as you gaze onto the planet below, she will reveal her true form. A floating golden mask with 2 magical hands. Attacking the hands is a bad idea as they'll retaliate, so just stay healed and throw as much damage as you can as fast as you can onto the mask. This form has got some amazing visual spells.
Remember when someone in chat was like, you should hit the hands? Pepperidge Farm remembers.
That you've not seen before, and some beautiful new animations. It's like they kept the trippy visuals to a gentle 7 out of 10 for the whole game, but then ramp it up to 10 for the final hour, making this whole section feel super intense. When you take the Queen down, she realizes she cannot win. So,
alright, here. This is where I was. 2 hours and 6 minutes into a 2-hour, 14-minute video. However, you know, I did miss the side stuff. But, I mean, who's gonna know to make a party with Frog at the head of the party and go to the waterfall level in 600 AD and allow a Birdman to throw rocks at your head until you get a golden rock? None of you, that's for sure. I didn't.
For a final act of cruelty, she uses the last of her power to forcefully throw us through time to 1999, the day of Lavos, leaving us no choice but to fight this alien thing. And so begins the final hour of constant battles. The Lavos mouth and shell will cycle through 9 forms, all matching the mechanics of bosses you fought previously. Thankfully, it does show you a gentle fade-in of what boss version you're about to fight. And if those bosses have multiple sections you can attack, small alien tentacles or growths will sprout from Lavos and act as those parts. So you need to take on the dragon tank from the bridge escape, and you have to remember, kill the head first. Then you fight the Guardian from food storage in 2300, Hekran from the cave systems, Zombor from Xenon Bridge, the Masamune combined from the cave top, Nisbel from the dinosaur caves, Magus from the original summoning attempt, the Black Tyranno from the reptile lair, and then Giga Gaia from the summit of the Mountain of Woe. And when the 9th form finally dies, you hear that trademark scream. But we're not finished. All we've done is broken the shell. Now we head inside the creature itself to fight the actual form of Lavos.
Of
The first
course!
form is a construct body housing a creature of pure despair, which opens the fight in the traditional way of nipple laser cannons. This form has a main body and 2
The traditional way. Damn it, Josh. Oh, also, this very, very much looks like a DBZ villain.
arms, and the arms will heal the body and the